Hi, this is Tutor Ali, and today the chapter I'm going to cover is going to be decision-making tools and techniques. Now, you should know that decision-making happens throughout the project in all the different domains, which is needs assessment, planning, analysis, traceability and monitoring, and evaluation. So let's go take a look at the learning goals that I'm going to cover in this chapter. The learning goals are, we are going to see what is the decision-making technique called as Delphi technique used for, explain the use of multi-voting technique and what that technique is. We are going to take a look into the steps of performing the Delphi technique and the multi-voting technique. We'll see what is option analysis. What is the technique used for consensus building? The process for consensus decision-making process. Different methods to reach group decision. And finally, what is poker planning? Let's get to the first slide for decision-making, which is the Delphi technique. The Delphi technique is a way of reaching consensus. This is where the participants will participate anonymously. So when this happens, it reduces bias during the decision-making process. A facilitator, like a business analyst or a project manager, will use a questionnaire to solicit ideas about the important project risks or project questions or project decisions. The responses then are summarized and recirculated to experts for further comment. And the consensus finally can be reached after a few rounds of this process. The important thing to remember is because of everyone is participating anonymously, the Delphi technique reduces bias in the data and keeps any one person from having undue influence on the outcome. It is a technique used to reach unanimity in group decision making, in which a selected group of experts answers questions and provides feedback regarding the responses from each round of requirements gathering. The responses are only available to the facilitator to maintain anonymity. So only the facilitator over here knows the responses. This process can be successfully used in any process where decision making is involved. So let's take a look at the diagram. This is where the process starts. Then the business analyst or the facilitator or the project manager is going to define the questions, going to select the panel who's going to be part of this process, going to design the surveys which are going to be given out to the experts or the team or whoever is going to be part of the decision making. Then the surveys are conducted. Once the surveys are conducted, the panel are going to review the results and they're going to see if the consensus is reached. If the consensus is reached, then they summarize the conclusions. If it is not reached, then they will review the results and then again conduct surveys and keep going in circles till the consensus is reached. So as I said before, Delphi technique is a consensus building technique. It is a decision making technique which is very helpful, and it can be helpful in any of the processes or any of the domains. Now let's go to the next one. The next one we have is the multi-voting technique. let's see what multi-voting technique is and why is it used. When we use brainstorming, it generates a long list of ideas. But what happens sometimes is all these many ideas are not realistic or feasible. So what multi-voting technique does is allows the group to narrow their list of options. This technique will not help the group make a single decision like the Delphi technique, but can help the group narrow a long list of ideas into a manageable number that can be discussed and explored. So when we get to the diagram, it will make it a lot more clear. So let's go back to it. So now this is where you have the multi-voting technique, where we are going to the voting process. And what we are trying to do is, these are all the brainstorm ideas that the team came up with. So what we are going to do is take these ideas, do the vote, and just pick the few that are the most important. Okay, so there was a meeting, and then they came up with a few ideas, which is replace the equipment, update the tables, update company policy, redesign brochures, update website, advertise using Google AdWords, advertise using Yahoo, update the processes, buy new computer tablets, etc. Now all these ideas were brainstormed maybe to increase the company's sale or to make a better product. But what happens is it's going to be really expensive and time consuming to go through all these processes. So what we asked the team for is to vote on which they think is the most important. And all they need to do is put a dot over there. Then we decide that we are going to select items with only 4 or more votes. Okay, so for the first one that you see is replace equipment, we have close to 6 votes. So obviously we are going to move it to the one that we are going to work with. We are going to select that one. Second one is update labels. Now we just have 3 votes over here, so we would think, okay, maybe it's not that important, maybe we can come back to this later on, but not right now. Then we have 4 or more 4 words in redesigning the brochures, which is pretty important. Updating the website. So this shows that the website really needs an update because the website has a lot of bugs, or it's not very user friendly. Then advertise using Google Words, which is how we are going to get a reach and get more customers. And we have advertise using Yahoo, update processes, buy new computer tablets. So out of these 9, you've seen we've selected only 4. 1, which is replace equipment, 2 is redesign brochures, 3 is update website, and 6 is advertise using Google AdWords. So over here we use the multi-voting technique, and as you can see, we have not come up to only one decision. We have come up to 4 or 5 decisions that we are going to follow through and update those. Okay, so let's go back here. So when to use multi-voting technique? When the group has a long list of possibilities, because when we do brainstorming, we have a long list of ideas, and wants to narrow it down to a few for analysis and discussion. When a selection process needs to be made after brainstorming. Steps to use multi-voting technique. First step obviously is we brainstorm a list of options. The second one is review the list from the brainstorming activity. Participants vote for the ideas that are worthy of further discussion. Identify items for next round of voting. Vote again, and then we repeat the steps. Now the next decision-making technique is going to be option analysis. As the name says, we are going to take a look at different options and analyze them and see which is the best option to proceed with. Okay, so the option analysis guidance provides a method to define and compare feasible options to achieve the object of an investment proposal. So we are going to define the options and compare the feasible options to make sure that we invest money in the correct place. An investment proposal may be made for various reasons, which could be to sustain or replace existing assets that are used to deliver current services, could be invest in assets that would be used to produce new services, dispose of surplus assets. Now the examples include alternatives for location. Where can we have this factory of ours? What are the different alternatives? Do we have it in this city or do we have it in this city? What are the plus and minus? Scale or standard of major infrastructure. How big do you want the infrastructure? How small do you want it? The use of private services, infrastructure, or intellectual property, government grants to private parties, or of outsourced services. One thing to remember is at the time of option analysis, when it's conducted, a project does not exist because decision makers have not taken a favorable investment decision. This will usually happen after the business case has been considered, the business case has been made, an option has been selected, and decisions have been taken on the scope, cost, risk, schedule, and other parameters that should apply. Okay, so option analysis, basically what we are doing here is considering the different options and compare them to achieve the objectives of investment proposal. Okay, so let's take a diagram. Let's take a look at the picture. Now over here, we are going to look into the appraisal period, the capital cost, how much is it going to cost? The whole life cost. We are doing cost benefit analysis. We are doing multi-criteria analysis or non-monetary benefit analysis. And then we put it in different options as to what we do with these. We do nothing, or we do minimum, or we are going to be aspirational. So that is what is done during option analysis, where we come up with different options and we look at the business case and we see the feasibility of this project. Okay. Now let's take a look at some more decision making and consensus building techniques. We know one of the decision making and consensus building technique is the Delphi technique. There's another one that we are going to cover is going to be poker planning. So let's see the definition. Consensus decision making is a group decision making process that seeks the consent of all participants. Consensus may be defined professionally as an accepted solution, one that can be supported even if not the favorite of each individual. Consensus is defined in the Merriam-Webster as first, general agreement, and second, group solidarity of belief or sentiment. It is used to describe both the decision and the process of reaching the decision. Consensus decision making is thus concerned with the process of deliberating and finalizing a decision, and the social and political effects of using this process. Now let's see, what does consensus decision technique aims to be? It aims to be agreement seeking. This is what we're trying to seek over here, is that everyone should agree on the decision. Collaborative, where participants work together and come up with a decision. Cooperative, where participants in an effective consensus process should strive to reach the best possible decision for the group and all the members. Egalitarian, where the members of a consensus decision-making body should be afforded as much as possible equal input into the process. All members have the opportunity to present and amend proposals. If the consensus is not reached in time, then they go through the process again, and then the members have the opportunity to present and amend these proposals. It aims to be inclusive, where as many stakeholders as possible should be involved in the consensus decision-making process. And then finally, it aims to be participatory, where the consensus process should actively solicit the input and participation of all decision makers. Let's take a look at the decision process. Once we go through the decision process, we're going to take a look at the diagram. We've already taken a look at the Delphi technique, but we're going to take a look at the diagram. So first, what's done is discussion of the item as to what we are going to discuss about. What is going to be the goal? What are the different options? What is the information about the topic? So first we discuss about the item, then formation of a proposal. So based on the discussion, a formal decision proposal on the issue is presented to the group. Then we call for consensus. Okay, the facilitator of the decision-making body calls for consensus on the proposal. Each member of the group usually must actively state their agreement with the proposal, often by using a hand gesture. Then there's identification and addressing of the concerns if consensus is not achieved, and there might be a possibility of starting another round of discussion to address the concern. And then finally, modification of the proposal, where the proposal is amended or rephased in an attempt to address the concerns of the decision makers. Okay, so let's take a look at the diagram. So first we are going to have the discussion. We're going to take a look at the proposal. We test for the consensus. If consensus is reached, if everyone has agreed, then consensus achieved. And what are we going to do is we are going to have an action item. If consensus is not reached, then the concerns are raised. Modification of the proposal is there. And then we test for consensus again. If it is reached, we have achieved consensus. If it is not reached, then we go back, raise the concerns, modification to the proposal, test for consensus, and we do that till the consensus is achieved. Okay, so that is one of the consensus decision-making technique called as the Delphi technique. The other one we have over here is poker planning. This technique is primarily used in the agile software development process. Let's take a look at what poker planning is. Poker planning is also an estimation technique. So I'm going to jump to the estimation domain. I will cover this more in detail when I come to the estimation chapter, but we're going to go take a real quick look at what poker planning is. Poker planning, as I said before, is used in Scrum which is also called as poker scrum. Over here, the members of the group make estimates by playing numbered cards face down to the table instead of speaking to them aloud. And if you take a look over here, we have an example of different cards. And these cards have numbers that are used to vote. But you don't show these numbers till the time is set, and then we are asked to show all our cards at the same time. And that's how we achieve a number where it assigns the number of points to a certain story or to a certain use case. So let's go back here. Poker planning is a variation of the Delphi method. It is very commonly used in agile software development. It is the best way around for agile teams to estimate. Basically, estimate what? Is we are estimating the time over here. How long is this user story going to take? Is it going to take 3 days? It's going to take 10 days? It is going to take 15 days? You know, we're talking about the whole process from start to finish. From design to the development to the testing till it's ready. What is the use of poker planning? It is a technique that minimizes anchoring by asking each team member to play their estimate card such that it cannot be seen by other players. Now the procedure at the estimation meeting, each estimator is given a deck of cards. All decks have identical cards in them with numbers. There'll be a moderator like a business analyst or project manager who will not play, and they chair the meeting. Moderator is going to give a short overview of what we are going to discuss about, what are the number of stories that we are going to estimate today, and what the process is going to be. Then people start doing their estimates. The team starts doing the estimates with a high estimate and low estimate for a given story. And finally, we ask everyone to turn the cards at the same time so we can get a total number of hours or days that that particular story is going to take. And then there is discussion where we try to reach consensus, where we ask the team members, does it look like a good time for finishing this particular task or this story? And if everyone agrees on, there is consensus that is reached, then we go on to the next task, where again we do the same estimate as to how long it's going to take. And this is consensus building technique because not everyone will come out with the same number of days or same number of time is going to take to finish a particular task. So this can even be done nowadays using an online app where everyone in the team is asked to download the app, and then you are going to take a look at the story. So this particular story, for example, is for browsing the plans, where the user can go in the system and then browse the different healthcare plans or insurance plans that are out there. Okay, so over here the team member is going to look at this story or the task for browse plans, and they're going to look at what the story has inside of that. As in, the browse plans task should cover where the user should be able to log in, where the customer should be able to change password, where the customer should be able to browse plans. And then the team member is going to think how long maybe it's going to take for this task to complete. So for example, Samuel thinks it's going to take 3 days, Irina thinks it's going to take 13 days. So we are going to, everyone is going to have their cards, and what they are going to do is just select the number. there is going to be a timer for everyone to vote for how long do they think that each task is going to take. And then once the timer is off, it's finished, the game is finished, and then we as project managers or business analysts will come up to a certain number which we'll think is an average, or where we think is around approximate time that it should take for this task to complete. But then again, before finalizing the time, either 13 days or 20 days, we are going to try to reach consensus between all the team members, where they have to agree on maybe 13 days. And if everyone agrees to that, then consensus is reached. If there are some who do not agree, then we do this whole step again. We do the whole voting process again. We do more discussion as to why do you not agree? What are the reasons? And then according to that, we will go through this process again and re-vote till the consensus is reached. So you can do it via an app. You can use poker planning cards. You could use it online. There's so many different ways that you could use poker planning. And as I said, it's a very good decision-making technique especially used in agile methodology, but it could be used in different places where decision-making is important as well. So I hope you understood the different decision-making techniques that you might use in your project. And as I said before, the decision-making process is going to be useful throughout the project from the start to the finish, meaning it is going to be used to assess all the needs and wants of the customer, to do planning, to do analysis, to do tracing and monitoring, and even in the evaluation domain. So I hope this makes it clear. So the next topic that we are going to cover is going to be leadership principles and skills. Thank you for watching. See you next time.